He's like that Bob Odenkirk, Senator Tinkerbell, just like a real fucking caricature of the Southern senator.
And that's the shinola on that one. All right. Now, I would like to address this arts funding issue. Now, this all reminds me of a humorous story of the traveling salesman. Let's say that the taxpayer is a farmer and the government is a salesman. Well, the farmer says you can spend the night in my barn, but do me a favor, don't stick your willy into any of the 3 holes in the wall. Well, in this case, the salesman's willy represents the taxpayer's money, you understand? Well, the government, like the salesman, can't help himself. Sticks his willy in the first hole, it feels good. Sticks his willy in the second hole, it feels even better. Sticks his willy in the third hole, and it hurts like hell, and it won't let go. Well, in the morning, the farmer comes out and he explains. Behind the first hole was my wife. Behind the second hole was my daughter. And behind the third hole was a milking machine that don't let go till it gets 50 gallons. Gentlemen, I propose that this arts funding is like a milking machine, and unless we shut it down, it's going to rip our dicks right off.
Tonight's show is brought to you by the new U.S. government, improving the arts by severely limiting them.
1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the Eschaton Review, a podcast that's having human moments in World War III while reading the Don DeLillo short story, Human Moments in World War III, from its originally published location in the July 1983 issue of Esquire magazine. Suspended in orbit at 17,000 miles per hour, I encircle the glowing sphere every 93 minutes. As I now turn my gaze toward the porthole and outward upon my occasional home below, I currently lay my eyes upon Lebanon. With Syria to its east, the occupied Palestinian territory called Israel to its south, and the Mediterranean Sea and the island nation of Cyprus to its west. Our timestamp from Beirut is 5:18 p.m. in the Eastern European Summer Time Zone. It is Wednesday, September 18th there. Also being, of course, the year of our Lord, Xenu Christ of Latter-day Saints, 2024. Well, a truly terrifying turn of events has recently descended upon the land in Lebanon, where we begin today's episode. There's been some very recent breaking news. I guess I'll get to that in a moment. But what happened on Tuesday, about 3:30 p.m., was that several thousand pagers were detonated throughout Lebanon. And current numbers, which have been kind of rapidly changing, have 12 people dead, 2 of them kids, 4 of them civilians by any metric, and thousands of people injured, about 400 of them critically so. And the response from the pro-Israeli set, our friendly neighborhood Zionists, has mostly been one of an ecstatic celebration and taunting, making really shitty memes, putting emojis of pagers in their Twitter handles, things like that. It's all pretty disgusting, and the response from the rulers of the universe, America, the USians, has been equally as shitty. Maybe not as in-your-face celebratory, but there's, of course, like, zero condemnation. There's no, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas for October 7th? Do you condemn Israel for this obvious act of terrorism, which, as Caitlin Johnstone described it, this isn't the surgical targeting of Hezbollah militants, as you might be led to believe by certain sources. She describes it better as turning people into involuntary suicide bombers to fight terrorism, of course. That was the title of article she wrote about this horror show. Yeah, and then, so that was about a day ago now. Get confused by all these time zones, worrying by the old extremely above ground bunker here. Let's say soon after this first attack, there was a second wave. I guess it was smaller. This is like just being reported on right now, so I don't have a ton to go off of here, but what I saw was pretty horrific. Instead of targeting pagers, they were now forcing walkie-talkies or various radios to explode, and I saw several videos and images of cars just engulfed in flames from this second wave. One specific I found was that, quote, one device even exploded during a funeral procession for an individual martyred in the eerily similar Tuesday attack, with a large crowd gathering around the person carrying it. Which immediately reminded me of, my first thought was, Israel really likes attacking the funerals of its victims. Somewhat famously, the Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was just shot in the head for no reason by the IDF. This was a few years ago now. Yeah, back in 2022, I think. Yes. And, there's footage of her funeral procession and the Israeli Gestapo with, riot gear just coming in and nearly knocking the casket over, if I'm remembering right. So yeah, that's who we're dealing with here, folks. Funeral bombers. I'm really, really pissed off having been soaking up this information all day so much that I can hardly see straight and hardly string words together, but I'll do my best. What else is there to say about this? There's plenty, but speaking of sort of, historical precedent leading up to this, like in the way that Israel likes to attack a funeral of what was you kick someone while they're down, attack a funeral while people are still mourning, a funeral that you caused. That's the Israeli playbook. Well, they're really into rigging communications devices to explode. As this kind of absurd article I found in the Financial Times laid out, which obviously they brought this up because of this recent terrifying attacks, exploding pagers join long history of killer communications devices. Subheader: Israel blamed by Hezbollah, as they spell it here, for Tuesday's attack has long used telephones and their successors to track and kill enemies. They're basically just two good, illustrative examples. They say here, Israeli spies have a decades-long history of using telephones and their technological successors to track, surveil, and even assassinate their enemies. As far back as 1972, as part of their revenge on the Palestine Liberation Organization for the killing of 11 Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics, Mossad operatives swapped out the marble base of the phone used by Mahmoud Hamshari, the PLO's representative in Paris, in his French apartment. On December 8th, when he answered the phone, a nearby Israeli team remotely detonated the explosives packed inside the replica base. Hamshari lost a leg and later died. In 1996, Israel's internal security agency, Shin Bet, managed to trick Yahya Ayash, a skilled Hamas bomb maker responsible for the killing of dozens of Israelis, into accepting a call from his father on a Motorola Alpha cell phone brought into Gaza by a Palestinian collaborator. Inside the phone was about 50 grams of explosives, enough to kill anybody holding the phone to their ear. Both instances are now part of Israeli spy legend, and this article goes on basically to talk about how cool and badass all this shit is, and how people have it coming. Don't mess with the world's premier Jewish state if you don't want the horns, so to speak. I'm mixing my metaphors, and I'm happy I landed on that one by accident. Yeah, horns. Anyway. Tropes. Okay. I'm mad, folks. I don't know if you hear it in my voice. I'm both very angry and very tired. So, it's exhausting and lonely up here. My isolation chamber. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to exaggerate how much the celebrations of this make my skin crawl, and how abundant they seem to be, at least on hell sites like Twitter. But there's some kind of interesting, like, conspiratorial behind the scenes things that now that this breaking news is just piled on, I just don't even feel like getting into, to be honest. There's one angle on that though, worth bringing up. I'm gonna kind of skip over who supplied. There's a whole thing about, like, this Taiwanese company supplied the pagers, but they had outsourced them. Maybe I am just going to talk about it briefly, but I'm not going to get super into it. They contracted out a Hungarian company, but as people have been looking into this Hungarian company, it appears to be completely made up. Like, its address is just like a mailbox rented in like somebody else's house, and their website only shows like one employee who is also the supposed owner and CEO of this company. In other words, it looks like a front company, you know, like a cutout for an intelligence agency. But it's like Israel has all but officially copped to this. In some other articles, there are anonymous U.S. sources. Yeah, I found this Axios article, and it's reporting on things in a way that none of the other sources seem to be, which is kind of weird. And it's also written by that, like, a kind of prominent Israeli journalist and Twitter presence. What is his name? Barak Ravid or something like that. But point is that, yeah, maybe there's some, like, it seems like shady stuff, but it's also like so kind of out in the open. And let's just pull up this Axios article here. Israel conducted Lebanon pager attack, fearing Hezbollah was on to the operation. So this seems to be a very unique angle that none of the other, the shitty American propaganda rags and also the media sources that I like are also not on top of this yet, but pretty much everyone is just assuming that Israel did this for obvious reasons, but they haven't denied it. Israel has not denied it, which to me is as good as a confession considering what they normally get up to. And the fact that, like, who else would do this? Like, really? Unless you wanted to go some sort of false flag thing. But anyway, okay, obviously, yes, Israel did this. But my point is they haven't officially claimed it. Although, I don't know, it's weird. I keep seeing all these, like, contradictory things because I saw a video of, like, an Israeli TV show where they were just saying outright, oh, Mossad did this. Like, and they were acting as if they were going off of official statements made by Mossad, which, I mean, I guess maybe they were just... I mean, that's the funny thing is when you look at Israeli media, they're, like, excited to take credit for this. They love it. I mean, like I said, they're all like memeing hard about, you know, beep beep, beepers, pagers, whatever. You know, it's exciting. It's exciting how you can turn, 5,000 people into walking suicide bombers against their will. But that's not terrorism, right? That's just that's counter-terrorism. They're fighting terrorism. All right. So the Axios article. Israel decided to blow up the pager devices carried by Hezbollah members in Lebanon and Syria on Tuesday out of concern its secret operation might have been discovered by the group, 3 U.S. officials told Axios. Why it matters. The attack took place as tensions rise between Israel and Hezbollah, which U.S. officials are highly concerned will devolve into all-out war. It was a use-it-or-lose-it moment, one U.S. official said, describing the reasoning Israel gave the U.S. for the timing of the attack. Driving the news. Hezbollah threatened to retaliate for the pager attack, which killed at least 9 people, including a child, and wounded 2,800 others. Those numbers are already inaccurate, but this was written 12 hours ago, I guess. Behind the scenes. A former Israeli official with knowledge of the operation said Israeli intelligence services planned to use the booby-trapped pagers it managed to, quote, plant in Hezbollah's ranks as a surprise opening blow in an all-out war to try to cripple Hezbollah. Surprise! But in recent days, Israeli leaders became concerned that Hezbollah might discover the pagers. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his top ministers and the heads of the Israel Defense Forces and the intelligence agencies decided to use the system now rather than take the risk of it being detected by Hezbollah, a U.S. official said. The Israeli concerns that led to the decision to conduct the attack were first reported by Al-Monitor, which said 2 Hezbollah operatives raised suspicions about the pagers in recent days. When President Biden's top advisor, Amos Hochstein, visited Israel on Monday, Netanyahu, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and other senior officials were engaged in hours of security consultations around the issue of the operation being potentially compromised. And then he goes on to basically say that they, at least according to, these unnamed sources, the relevant officials in Israel basically just told U.S. officials very vague things. Like, for example, on Tuesday, several minutes before the pagers started exploding across Lebanon, Gallant called U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and told him Israel was about to conduct an operation in Lebanon soon, but refused to give any specific details. A U.S. official said the Israelis didn't tell U.S. about the specifics of the operation, but added that Gallant's call was an attempt to avoid keeping the U.S. totally in the dark. I should also mention that literally the day before this, there was some limp little warning, so to speak, issued by the U.S. to Israel, specifically to not, basically, don't go to war with Lebanon, please. And less than 24 hours after that, this insane terrorist attack of simultaneous explosions around the entire country happens. And I don't know, it's anybody out there in listener land who thinks like, oh, this is just another, the carpet bombing in Gaza is worse. Yeah, it is, like, of course, like, in terms of, like, people being killed and maimed. But there's something particularly unsettling about this method of terrorizing people. I mean, it's fairly unprecedented. I mean, I mentioned the stuff that happened before, but that was like rigging up a little bomb phone for one person. This is literally 5,000 devices all set to explode at the same time in the middle of the day when people are obviously out and about, shopping, driving, doing errands. It's almost improbable that nobody was like on an airplane or like, I mean, I don't even know, like this has happened so recently. I imagine I know people were in their cars when these things went off, but I mean, being on like public transportation, you can just imagine so many scenarios, and you don't even have to imagine them now because a lot of them happened. But I feel like it's a really insidious way to just inject a kind of severe paranoia into a populace. I mean, just imagine just the idea of having like these everyday items that are around you all the time, that you carry with you pretty much at all times, that you keep on your person, in a pocket, whatever, and now they're just as weaponized as anything that might come raining down from the sky or something. And then, yeah, to see this second wave of explosions hit, yeah, I can't even imagine what people are feeling right now there. What else did I want to say about this? Anything? Like other scenarios where this could have created a hugely ripple effect. Like imagine one of these people were researching deadly viruses or bacterias in a lab somewhere, or someone working at a nuclear power plant. It's just so it's such a reckless and definitely goes against the rules of war method of attacking people. And now it's kind of like cat's out of the bag, toothpaste is out of the tube. It just seems like there's just going to be more of this, and it's disturbing to imagine. And I mean, I don't know like the real state of the science. I saw some like basic little kind of arguments back and forth today, but it seems like it could be easy to detonate devices like this without actually intercepting them and planting explosives in them. Basically anything with like a certain style of lithium battery, if you can like hack into that device and I don't know, basically just like juice up the battery, I'm using very technical terms here. Yeah, you could like theoretically just like have an entire country's like every single phone in that country explode at the same time. All right, I got sidetracked about the sort of conspiratorial angle. This is very people who got warned not to fly on 9/11 type thing, but on the scale of this kind of attack. And I guess what happened was in Beirut, there is something called the Hospital of the American University in Beirut reportedly took all pagers of its nurses and doctors about 10 days before this event and, quote, replaced them due to technical issues, according to employees. And somebody got a hold of this memo, basically, I don't know, it's a memo, whatever, a letter, just explaining, like, we're going to replace all of these pagers. It could just be a fucked up coincidence, but who knows? I mean, I don't know if... I haven't looked into this very deeply yet. I mean, it's all just too early to tell, like, anything at this point beyond, the obvious stuff, but, I don't know if American University necessarily means that it's like a bunch of American people there, because I think that's kind of the that's implied in the suspicion of this is like, oh, how convenient, America University didn't blow up, their pagers didn't blow up, they just happened to change out their pagers 10 days beforehand. But who knows? I wouldn't put it beyond. The whole thing is conspiratorial. The whole act itself is like by definition a conspiracy, and it's like a very shady one many months into the making. So like I guess Israel was like sitting on this for like 5 to 6 months, I'm pretty sure is how long the pagers had been in Lebanon. Let's take a look at how this event was talked about amongst movers and shakers. There was an article in the New York Times. Israel's pager attack has no clear strategic goal, analysts say. I mean, this article is full of other shit to dig into, but I specifically pulled it up for another reason. But yeah, the problem with this isn't that it was pure terrorism. No, it's lacking a clear goal. That's the only notes the New York Times has to give on this whole thing. I mean, the coverage in basically all mainstream media worldwide, essentially, just mind-boggling. But then also not, because of course, enemies are obviously written about differently than our allies. But it's just so there's no difference beyond that, obviously. But yeah, there's zero by way of moral condemnation coming from the New York Times, the Washington Post, or any of these fucking things, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whatever. It's either let's marvel at the sophisticated technological prowess of Israel. Amazing. Like you find words literally like amazing, tremendous. It's like Trump talking about it. Actually, I wonder what Trump has had to say about this, if anything. I'm sure he'll weigh in with something fucked up and weird as well. But in any case, just to hammer home that this is a terrorist act, in this New York Times article, I'll just read through some of it here. Oh, right, this part. Although Tuesday's attack was an eye-catching demonstration of... Okay, so right there, eye-catching demonstration. I mean, it could be nothing, but I did notice some people pointing out that it seemed, and considering the way the completely cold way, sans all empathy, whatever, that they're covering this shit, it's not that crazy to think maybe they're putting in a little dig there with eye-catching, considering that a huge number of the thousands of injuries of the thousands of injuries that happened were taking out people's eyes, one or both, blinding people for the rest of their lives. So, that's something to think about. But continuing, Israel's technological prowess. See, there we go. Israel has not initially sought to capitalize on the confusion it sowed by initiating a decisive blow against Hezbollah and invading Lebanon. Well, how kind of them. It's mighty, mighty generous. And if the attack impressed many Israelis, some of whom had criticized their government for failing to stop Hezbollah's strikes, their core frustration remains. Hezbollah is still entrenched on Israel's northern border, preventing tens of thousands of residents of northern Israel from returning home. Oh, gee, I wonder what that feels like, to not be allowed to return home. Only Israelis understand? Only 90s kids understand? God, what the fuck? This shit is giving me brain tumors. Okay. This is an amazing tactical event, said Miri Eisen, a fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism, an Israel-based research organization. But not a single Hezbollah fighter is going to move because of this, said Miss Eisen. Having amazing capabilities does not make a strategy. See, this is the only notes given on exploding 5,000 bombs in random positions around Lebanon. I don't have the time to even look it up right now, but like I did hear someone say, without any sort of attribution, but in some video I was watching, I did hear someone say that one of these pagers actually exploded as far away as London, but I haven't seen that written anywhere else, so I'm not sure about that. Updates pending, I guess. Just to continue a little bit here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's mostly just still going on about, like, how could Israel more effectively do terrorism? Like, this is good, but it's only a good start, But the part I'm looking for is right about here. Okay. With negotiations over Gaza now at an impasse, how did that happen? Who did that? Nobody knows. It's a mystery. Except it's not at all. It's printed in every Israeli newspaper that Netanyahu is actively sabotaging these deals. And the IDF and the United States, of course, who's always in tow, always behind all of these things anyway, are trying to kill the head negotiator of Hamas. So it's kind of hard to believe that they're really working tirelessly around the clock, as Mo Mala tells us, to get a ceasefire. I digress. With negotiations over Gaza now at an impasse, the Israeli leadership may believe it has to take more ambitious action against Hezbollah to persuade the group to disentangle its fate from that of Hamas, analysts said. That's an interesting turn of phrase. Disentangle its fate from that of Hamas. No, Hezbollah and the Houthis are very clearly, loudly, proudly, openly, since day one, in solidarity with Gaza, and their ceasing of their own firing upon Israel, which has been fairly restrained, honestly, is contingent upon the genocide stopping. Okay. But you never see that written in the New York Times, of course, or anywhere else, really, except for the good media spots, the ones that I like. In recent days, the Israeli leadership has intensified its public focus on Hezbollah, with the country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, warning this week that, quote, military action was, quote, the only way to end the conflict. The point is to disconnect the war Hezbollah declared on Israel from the war with Hamas, Mr. Yadlin said. Mr. Yadlin is a former head of Israel's military intelligence directorate. So, Major General Amos Yadlin, whatever. Yeah, you can't disconnect the war Hezbollah declared on Israel from the war with Hamas. They are, by definition, intertwined, as I just laid out again. The operation gives Mr. Hochstein or Hochstein, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. What is Hochstein's job? I can't remember now. Too many people, too many assholes to juggle in my mind. I believe he's I can't find it in the article. I think this guy is the special envoy to Lebanon. He's supposed to be sort of advocating for Lebanon, but he's definitely not. He's much more just communicating with Israel in the ways that they want him to. But so Mr. Hoch or Hochstein. Okay, so this Yadlin former general guy continues, and here's the part I was really trying to get to throughout all of this. Yadlin says, the point is to disconnect the war Hezbollah declared on Israel from the war with Hamas, Mr. Yadlin said. The operation gives Mr. Hochstein, this special envoy, a, quote, another tool to use when speaking with Hezbollah. You better reach an agreement or you'll face a more substantial and surprising attack, Mr. Yadlin added. That is, by definition, what terrorists do. They're threatening further violence if an agreement isn't met on their terms. That's kind of the main thing I wanted to get at there. But yeah, this is how higher ups in Israel talk all the time and have been forever, not just the last 11 going on 12 months now, but for longer than that, of course. Okay. Well, while we're in the neighborhood, and we have been talking about Israel anyway, Gideon Levy, the little I know of him, he's on the right side of history. He's a good anti-Zionist Israeli. Seen him do public speakings and maybe even some debates or something. And but he also writes some pretty good opinion pieces for Haaretz, the Israeli New York Times or whatever people call it, which also weirdly does better reporting than most major U.S. publications. For example, they've covered a lot on how the IDF is actually the ones guilty of using human shields. If you're looking for some exciting bedtime reading, you check that out. I recently felt compelled to link about 10 of those articles to some dickhead online who was popping off about that, so... but Gideon Levy writes here, Israelis must ask themselves if they're willing to live in a country that lives on blood. What? This sounds like blood libel, if you ask me. But he's Jewish. Well, then he's a self-hating Jew. Okay, case closed. I was going to say, obviously, he's not really talking about real blood, but he is. But of course, he's not talking about actually subsisting physically off of blood, of course. He's not going the vampiric route here, but I thought this was a good article. I'll read a little bit of it here. And this just came out a couple days ago, right before this explosive news. Sorry. Israel is turning with alarming speed into a country that lives on blood. The daily crimes of the occupation are already less relevant. Over the past year, a new reality of mass killing and crimes of an entirely different scale has emerged. We are in a genocidal reality. The blood of tens of thousands of people has flowed. This is the time that all Israelis should ask themselves if they are willing to live in a country that lives on blood. Just don't say that there is no choice. Of course there is. But first we must ask whether we are even prepared to live like this. Are we, the Israelis, willing to live in the only country in the world whose existence is based on blood? The only vision that is widespread in Israel now is to live from one war to another war, from one bloodletting to the next, from massacre to massacre, with intervals spaced as widely as possible. No other vision is on the table. Hopeful people promise long intervals, while the right promises a permanent blood-soaked reality. War, mass killing, systematic violation of international law, a pariah state repeating on an endless cycle. The Palestinians will continue to be massacred, and Israelis will continue to close their eyes to it. Hard to believe. A time will come when more Israelis will open their eyes and recognize that their country subsists on blood. Without bloodshed, we are told we have no existence, and we make our peace with this horrific statement. We not only believe that such a country can exist forever, we are convinced that without the blood offering, it has no existence. Every 3 years, a bloodletting in Gaza, every 4 years in Lebanon. In between, there's the West Bank, and occasionally a blood sortie to additional targets. There is no other country like it in the world. Blood cannot be the country's fuel, just as no one would imagine driving a car that is powered by blood, no matter how cheap. It is difficult to imagine 10 million residents willing to live in a country that runs on blood. The war in Gaza is a watershed. Is this how we will continue? The media tries to sell us that this is a necessity. Through campaigns that demonize and dehumanize the Palestinians, a unified and monstrous chorus of commentators is successfully selling us the idea that we can live for eternity on blood. We will mow the grass in Gaza every 2 years. We will execute generation after generation of young regime opponents, imprison tens of thousands of people in concentration camps. We will expel, cull, expropriate, and of course kill, and that is how we will live, in the country of blood. We have already killed the Palestinian people. We began with the mass killing in Gaza, and now we have turned to the West Bank. Blood will be shed in gallons there too if no one stops the battalion. The killing is both physical and emotional. Nothing is left of Gaza now. The detainees, the orphans, the traumatized, the homeless will never return to what they were. The dead certainly will not. It will take generations for Gaza to recover, if it even can. This is genocide, even if it does not meet the legal definition. It does, by the way, Gideon. A country cannot live on such an ideology, certainly not when it intends to continue doing so. Let's assume the world continues to allow it. The question is whether we, the Israelis, are willing to allow it. How long can we live with the knowledge that our existence depends on blood? When will we ask whether there genuinely is no alternative to a country of blood? After all, there's no other country like this. Israel has never seriously tried another way. It was programmed and directed to behave as a country that lives off blood, even more so after October 7th. As if that terrible day, after which everything is permissible, sealed its fate as a country of blood. The fact is that no other possibility has been raised for discussion. But a country of blood is not an option, just as a blood-fueled car is not an option. When we realize this, we'll begin looking for the alternatives, if only for lack of any other option. They are there, and they are waiting for a test drive. They may surprise us, but in the present reality, it is impossible to even suggest them. So don't fill your car up with blood, don't run your country on blood, folks. It's bad news. Yeah, and there was some fucking annoying shit with the press briefings, of course, as always. I'm not even going to get into that now. And Michael Rappaport released a video that made me want to slit my own throat, as well as someone else's, possibly. It was about 5 seconds long. It really felt like he was trying his best to recreate the kind of shaky cam, Dark Knight, Heath Ledger Joker, like ransom video or whatever. Anyway, he's just like, he's laughing like a lunatic at himself saying beep beep. Maybe I'll insert it.
Beep beep. Beep beep. Beep beep.
Order in Gotham. Batman must take off his mask and turn himself in. Oh, and every day he doesn't, people will die. Starting tonight. I'm a man of my word.
Just so everyone else can feel my pain. Well, anyway, just remember that guy is complete shit, and feel free to start an online harassment campaign against him if you're so inclined. In not completely depressing news, I can still see Italy down there, so we'll talk about something that happened at the Venice Film Festival. An up-and-coming film director, a Jewish-American director, Sarah Friedland, used her acceptance speech at the Venice Film Festival for her debut film, Familiar Touch, to voice support for Palestinians facing what she described as the 336th day of Israel's genocide in Gaza. So she said, as a Jewish American artist working in a time-based medium, I must note I'm accepting this award on the 336th day of Israel's genocide in Gaza and 67th year of occupation. I believe it is our responsibility as filmmakers to use the institutional platforms through which we work to redress Israel's impunity on the global stage. I stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine and their struggle for liberation. Like, I know this is like, it's not a big deal, but, I mean, I'm taking the scraps I can get here. But also what I found interesting about this was that it's got very little coverage, but that statement that Jonathan Glazer made at the Academy Awards, which was so tame, but it got like so much pushback and insane hysterical reaction. She's being way more strong in her statement here. She's actually using the word genocide. She's talking about the fact that this has been going on for 76 years. Not just referring to October 7th and how they're good people and bad people on both sides, which is kind of what the Jonathan Glazer thing amounted to. I mean, whatever, like, it was fine what he said, but, it wasn't, I didn't think it was that brave, honestly. And also even just the use of the word like liberation, like Palestinian liberation. I don't even think Jonathan Glazer used the word Palestine. It was like very just kind of vague. Like everyone knows what he's talking about, but didn't actually say the words. But anyway, good on, what was her name? Good on Sarah Friedland. And shit, maybe I'll check out her movie. She seems cool based just on this, so that's in Italia. Still in the region here is Yemen. Very recently, the Houthis fired a hypersonic missile at Israel, and it successfully dodged all of the attempts at interception. Representative of the Houthi media authority said that 20 missiles failed to intercept theirs, but basically, yeah, they shot a missile in 11 minutes, quite some distance, basically right outside of Tel Aviv. It said that this was just a test run. So, I don't know. I guess I'll just say, let's remember why Hezbollah and why the Houthis are doing what they're doing and what their terms are, and they've made it very clear from the beginning that this won't stop until the genocide of Palestinians stops. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, I don't relish the idea of escalation and all-out war, but while kind of helplessly just living through a computer at all of this stuff, yeah, sometimes I'm like, fucking good job. Good job. Let's just say, may the fearless Ansar Allah's missiles aim be good and true, and may 1,000 Hezbollah well-timed munitions bloom brightly, inshallah. Okay. I was gonna say moving out of the Middle East or Southeast Asia, as some say, but before that happens, I just want to take a look at Afghanistan and note that another Financial Times article is getting into the stats surrounding poppy fields, poppy production, opium production in Afghanistan. U.S. presence in Afghanistan tends to almost always correlate with increased poppy growing. After U.S. NATO occupation of Afghanistan ended, opium poppy production fell 99% in the country's largest province, Helmand. At the same time, wheat production nearly doubled. Seems like that's good for normal people living in Afghanistan, as opposed to, who knows? It's not. We've never seen intelligence agencies in the U.S. Directly involved in drug trafficking, so why would I suggest they might be now? And during the U.S.-NATO war, Afghan opium was the #1 source for global heroin production. It obviously plummeted after, and also beforehand, before the U.S. invasion. I mean, I think there was still some opium production, but not nearly at the levels that it was while being occupied by the United States military / NATO's military. So yeah, that's just a quick little trip through U.S. occupation history of Afghanistan there. At least one angle on it. Meanwhile, in the geographically largest nation on Earth, Vladimir Putin wants Russians to have sex during work breaks amid declining birth rate. Says fate of Russia depends on it. Now, this is obviously a little bit of a clickbait article, but from what I can gather here, that was the specific recommendation was like, get to fucking every chance you've got. I look forward to updating you on this when there are like It'll be like those previously mentioned years ago on this podcast, those little crying rooms or whatever that Amazon set up, where it's like people that are having like emotional breakdowns can just go into this like cubicle thing that looks like a fucking porta potty. Yeah, I want to see that kind of thing for work time, break time, fuck sessions. I'm willing it into existence. Yeah, so this is an issue in many countries nowadays. Declining birth rates and low fertility rates, and Putin's really thinking outside the box, as it were. I didn't even think about how this would be spun by like the Russiagate crowd into something. I don't even know what it would be. I bet it would be funny though. Alright, and I spy with my little eye far away, all the way across the sea, a little nation called the US of A, where one Donald Trump has had his life threatened again. I think this is like breaking records, I'm pretty sure. Don't believe... presidents get death threats all the time, but like an actual like active attempt to assassinate twice within a short period of time, and while not even in office. It's just... It really shows how much people get real rattled and worked up about Trump. I think everybody's probably heard plenty about this by now, but a few things I wanted to get into about this weird guy who's in custody currently, who... It's not even clear if he got a shot off or not. I keep reading different accounts of like there was gunfire exchanged, or he just had this weapon that was, he was in the bushes and the Secret Service, whatever, security detail found him there. But enter one Ryan Wesley Ruth. He's older. He's much older than Thomas Crooks, old Tommy Crooks, R.I.P., the previous Trump would-be assassin. He got a lot closer than Ryan Wesley Ruth did. Also, I know people have noticed this before. Like, presidential assassins or would-be assassins are always referred to with their full names, like their middle name as well, the three names thing. But why is that? I want to know why that is. I guess I haven't even given it a web search, and maybe there's a reason for it somehow, but did it just become like this tradition within newspapers or whatever? Because like all the media outlets immediately were referring to Thomas Crooks by his full name, which I forget. Oh, that poor guy. No one's ever he did not get any kind of glory that he may have been seeking at all. Real pathetic shit. Anyway, what's up with that? What's up with the three names? And the newspaper's always referring to only assassins, especially presidential assassins or would-be assassins that way. But so this guy, he's a bit older. I don't have his exact age pulled up right now. I would guess late 50s. He looks like he's been pretty weathered. Anyway, his whole deal is basically he's a fucking Ukraine freak to the max. He got real obsessed with wanting to fight and die in Ukraine, opposing the rotten Ruskies, and he seems to have been a bit delusional. He has a self-published book that I guess you can buy on Amazon for $3. I just listened to secondhand accounts of Max Blumenthal describing what was in it, which was interesting enough. And there are screenshots of like tweets and things on Facebook, but otherwise his accounts have been disappeared, which is sort of suspect in a way, but also maybe not. Maybe that's just what happens. No, I don't know. Whatever. Like, as much as I enjoy a good conspiratorial leveling up, this probably has nothing to do with external forces directly contacting and influencing this guy. Instead, I think he's most likely just the product of a warped U.S. political landscape where people just take on all kinds of contradictory, weird views. And on top of that, I don't know, I guess he's getting some sort of psychological evaluation right now. He seems like, I don't think he was necessarily like schizophrenic or something that serious, but he seems like maybe psychotically depressed or something, because so many of his tweets are, he just, as much as he's focused on fighting, he's focused on dying. It's very much the kind of like macho thing as well. He's like, I'm willing to throw down my life for this cause, whatever. And he definitely was not. Like, he did go to Ukraine, and people basically just didn't like him there. He never did any sort of fighting. He claimed to be like a recruiter, and he just a lot of crazy shit. Like, he was always invoking Afghans. He's like, I got like 12 Afghani guys ready to go. They're ready to airdrop into Taiwan right now. So he was also in Taiwan, of course, but like his main thing seemed to be Ukraine. But also he was like big into Trump, and I guess at least what I read in a few places was that it was confirmed that he voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, but things started to take a turn, I guess, when he got really into Ukraine after the Russian invasion. I mean, my first thought when I first saw that this guy was like a total like kind of zealot for Ukraine was that he must have been extremely Russiagate pilled, like from the original Russiagate, like as it was happening. But I guess if he was like a Trump guy throughout those years, he probably ignored or dismissed or didn't even notice Russiagate, and it doesn't appear that he ever really brought it up by name or like, you know, didn't talk about things like the P tape or whatever. It was more just like vague, Russia bad, Ukraine good, I want to be good. There's a video interview with him where he literally breaks it down like that and describes it as like a storybook or like a movie. This is all kind of like ties in with his whatever sort of cognitive deficits were going on with this guy, to put it nicely. And also in that interview, his hair, I feel like I'm the only one who noticed this. No one else. I thought it was hilarious when I realized, like, oh shit, he dyed his hair half blue and half yellow, ? He tried to make it look yellow for, Ukraine support. So while I said that I don't really believe that this guy was like an asset of anyone or like hired out. I think he was probably acting alone. I mean, everything suggests that. Like, number one, he didn't get a shot off from what I can tell. Like, he was like 300 yards away from Trump, like on the golf course or whatever. So I think he was probably just working alone. But just to, thought experiment a bit for a second. I'd say the most compelling idea that there could be some incentive for the ruling class to have a nut job patsy like this off Trump is that Trump is the only person within striking distance, so to speak, of the Oval Office who has expressed any sort of interest in brokering peace between Ukraine and Russia, and ending the conflict. Of course, I don't believe for a second that Trump would actually get this done, or even that he actually cares to, but it is what he said, which is far more than what any Democrat or all the other Republicans ever say on this topic, basically. I mean, at best, you'll find Republicans who are like, we should get out of Ukraine because it's a waste of money. Use that money to fuck up the Chinese is usually what they'll say. It's not a matter of like, oh, like peace is good and war is bad. But anyway, this is all just, like I said, thought experiment shit. So yeah, like while the Dems and pretty much all the Dems, I'm hard pressed to think of any that actually speak out against this war as a proxy war and as something largely instigated by NATO on purpose for the last 30 odd years. But yeah, so like everybody in the government is in lockstep on this, and this complex money laundering operation which runs on the fuel that is dead Ukrainians and Russians alike. It's beyond clear that NATO has directly halted peace talks since the early days of this, this segment of the war, much like this shit didn't begin on October 7th between Israel and Palestine. This shit did not begin in February of 2022 between Russia and Ukraine. Like, at the very least, you got to go back to 2014 during the US-backed coup. But you go back further, pre-Putin, during like the Yeltsin days, when all the biggest, most consequential bullshit promises were made and then broken by US/NATO. But anyway, I am digressing. I have digressed. So that's all to say that if there were any possible reason that there's more to this story than there appears to be, it would be motivated in that way of like, you can't end this gold rush of a war that we have going. So we're willing to like kill a very famous person that if you I was thinking about this the other day, like what would happen if Trump got? I think there would be a fair amount of unrest. I mean, just think about the people who love that guy. But that's why I don't actually believe this, because I think it would be very easy for the people truly in power to pull Trump aside and be like, or not even pull him aside, just be like, fuck you, it doesn't matter what you say, even if he did become president. Like, I don't think he actually cares that much about bringing peace between Ukraine and Russia, as much as he does give lip service to it, which is frankly better than whatever the fuck Kamala has to say about it, which is just like, we're lethal. We have the most lethal military. It's like her only go-to phrase on anything that has to do with war. America, lethal. Haha, coconut, I'm lethal. Final thoughts on Ryan Wesley Ruth for the time being. Just a couple other little tidbits I picked up about him. As much as he was obsessed with and claimed to love Ukraine in his book, which is basically just like a memoir, he complains about the place a lot and often refers to it disparagingly as communist, and saying like this country doesn't really want to like win the war, and like their bureaucracy is like stopping me from getting my citizen army that's all in my head to come out to Ukraine and fuck up some Russians. I mean, this guy would just, if you could look at the series of this guy's tweets, he like puts his phone number in his tweets. Like, it's very unhinged, and he's like calling for like a citizens army to be mobilized along like the Ukraine-Russian border. It's just very delusional fantasy shit. And he did make it there. I mean, he did get out to Ukraine, but he basically just like hung out in a hotel and like tweeted a lot and dyed his hair blue and yellow and shit like that. And also appeared in a commercial. I didn't know these guys did commercials, but appeared in a commercial for the Azov Battalion, the most famous of the Ukrainian Nazi groups, the one that's officially integrated into the military. And also, I found this out the other day, someone finally got around to making a rule that money can't directly go to the Azov Battalion, even though the rule didn't stop the Azov Battalion from benefiting from all the billions that were being sent to Ukraine. But now that's been overturned because it's too restrictive on our Nazi friends over there. So now you can just write a check, a congressperson, a regular old person, anybody. I mean, specifically this was about federal funds, but now, yeah, you can just openly fund the Azov Battalion, which is great. But yeah, this guy, Wesley Ruth, when people were digging around for information on him, one of the things that popped up was him appearing in this Azov Battalion commercial. One of the funny things too about him, though, in that video interview that I saw, was that he was just going on about like, he's like, I don't understand what's wrong with these Russians. They don't know how to help people, and like people want peace, and we need peace, and we gotta care for each other, and like he's just saying like all this hippie shit basically, but he's essentially saying Russians don't get collectivism like we do in the West. While also complaining that Ukrainians are communist or whatever. Yeah, I mean, this guy's just all over the place. So, I don't know. I imagine some more weird shit might come out about him, but possibly not. Maybe this is all there is to him. Maybe he is just a sort of schizoid, unwell, mentally unwell person. I don't know for sure. But if I had to bet in any direction, I'd probably go in that direction, I guess. We can skip that. We'll skip that. We'll do that on the other show, maybe. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about US of A. In, I guess, somewhat positive news, got a fairly big labor strike going amongst Boeing machinist aircraft workers. 30,000 strong. Boeing is one of the more evil corporations on this planet, so I mean, I always like to see a good labor strike, regardless, but especially on an insidious company like Boeing. I'll just throw out maybe one of the best ways, if you don't already kind of know how fucked up Boeing is, and they've been in the news a lot lately. There's a good documentary I watched like a couple years ago, maybe. Feels like a couple years. Downfall. Not the Hitler movie, no. This one is, 2022. I think I saw it on Netflix. I think it is a Netflix documentary. Downfall, the case against Boeing. And it's all about this, like, horrific crash that happened, and it was all, like, pretty easily traced back to corporate decisions made to, like, cut corners, essentially, on, certain safety equipment within the plane. I mean, obviously I don't remember all the specifics, but it's if you like a good old soul-crushing documentary, Downfall, the case against Boeing has it in spades. I'll say one positive thing. I know a lot of people these days kind of hate on the fact that Netflix and all of these streaming services, their original docu-series get like stretched out unnecessarily into like 6-part series or whatever. This one is just a brisk 89 minutes and you're in and you're out. But check that out and support your local striking Boeing unionized machinist aircraft worker as well. Here we go. John Kennedy. Actually, I wanted to look up this fucking asshole first. Who the fuck is John Kennedy? John Kennedy, the Louisiana politician. I'm guessing no relation to the other Kennedys, but I don't know. Yeah, no relation. He's just like he's like that Bob Odenkirk, Senator Tinkerbell, just like a real fucking caricature of the Southern senator. He was being a real piece of shit recently to, let's just read it. Here from our friends at MiddleEastMonitor.com. Title, You Support Hamas, U.S. Senator to Arab American Leader.
You support Hamas, do you not?
Senator, oddly enough, I'm going to say thank you for that question because it demonstrates the purpose of our hearing today in a very effective way.
Let's start first with a yes or no.
Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization that I do not support, but you asking the executive director of the Arab American Institute that question very much puts the focus on the issue of hate in our country.
Well, I got your answer, and I appreciate it. What is the you support Hezbollah too, don't you?
Again, I find this line of questioning extraordinarily disappointing,
Is that
Senator.
No?
That
Or
you have Arab American constituents that you represent in your great state.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that, but my time's limited, and I apologize. But is that a yes or a no?
A yes or no question to do I support Hezbollah? The answer is I don't support violence, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or any other entity that invokes it.
You can't
so
bring
no,
yourself
sir.
to say no, can you?
No, I can say no. I can say yes.
But
what
you
I can say is
you just
your
can't
line
make
of
yourself
questioning.
Do it. Do you
Senator,
support or oppose Iran and their hatred of Jews?
Again, I'm going to emphasize Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, none of them is going to, this discussion.
You can't bring yourself to say no, can
Sir,
you?
I don't support.
It's real simple.
Excuse me. I'm going to,
Ian,
if I may, as a Muslim woman, sir, I'm going to tell you I do not support Iran. But what I will tell you is that this conversation.
I'm running out of time. I'm sorry. You called our decision to cut funding. You called our decision to cut fund. Well, first, what's the United Nations Relief and Works Agency?
It's UNRWA, which is the institution that exists to provide services and aid to the nearly 6 million Palestinian refugees.
And you called our decision to cut funding for them, quote, an incredible moral failure, close quote.
That is absolutely correct. But again, I would suggest that conversation is about foreign policy.
We did that because 9 UNRWA staff members were fired for actually helping Hamas on October 7th. Isn't that the case?
I don't believe that that's correct in terms
Let
of...
me ask you one more time. You support Hamas, don't you? You
Sir.
support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you?
Sir,
Please.
I think it's exceptionally disappointing that you're looking at an Arab American witness before you and saying you support Hamas.
You know what's disappointing to me?
I do not support Hamas.
Bring yourself
I do
to
not
say
support Hamas
you don't
or
support UNRWA. You don't support Hamas. You don't.
I was very clear in my support for
Hezbollah,
UNRWA.
and you don't support Iran. You should hide your head in a bag.
In a U.S. Senate hearing about hate crimes, a senior senator repeatedly asked a representative of the Arab American community, and the only Muslim being questioned, if she supports Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran in what critics are calling blatant racism. Yeah, I'd say that's a fair characterization. This guy's a real fucking asshole. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing in Washington ostensibly focused on, quote, stemming the tide of hate in America took an unexpected turn on Tuesday when a staunch pro-Israel Republican, Senator John Kennedy, launched into an anti-Palestinian and anti-Muslim tirade against the sole Muslim witness present. Maya Berry, executive director of the nonpartisan Arab American Institute, faced a barrage of baseless accusations from the Louisiana senator during yesterday's proceedings. Kennedy questioned Berry's allegiance repeatedly, implying without evidence that she supported terrorist organizations. You support Hamas, don't you? You support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you? Kennedy asked aggressively, in a manner that appeared to have been taken straight from an Israeli playbook. Since the start of its genocidal offense in Gaza, the apartheid state has peddled the baseless claim that the UN relief agency supports terrorism. Yeah, I'm really fucking sick of seeing these chuds invoke UNRWA as if it's like, I don't know, the most evil institution imaginable. It's like literally like a relief agency. But anyway, that's for a whole other segment or something. Irked by Kennedy's aggressive line of questioning, the chair cut off his microphone temporarily. Temporarily is the key word there, because it gets turned right the fuck back on. In a blow to Israel's campaign to designate UNRWA as a terror group, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, God, I hate Matthew Miller. The vampire himself. The guy who cannot stop grinning smugly no matter what, even though he's talking about the most horrific shit. I'm not smiling. I'm telling you about how many Palestinians died. This isn't a smile. Matthew Miller clarified the American position on the UN agency in July, stating that it is, quote, not a terrorist organization. Wow, how mighty white of you. How mighty kind of you, Matt Miller. As Barry attempted to respond, Kennedy continued his interruptions. You can't bring yourself to say you don't support UNRWA, you don't support Hamas, you don't support Hezbollah, you don't support Iran. You should hide your head in a bag, said the senator. Now, at first, when I first saw this, I was like, I just kind of thought, oh, I get it. Like, he's just insulting her generally. But then the more I kept thinking about it, and when I saw people like in the comments sections be like, hide your head in a bag is essentially implying that she should be dead. And I don't know. write in, listener, if you understand fully what is meant by hide your head in a bag. I thought it was more like you should just be ashamed of yourself, but I don't know, other people are reading other things into it, and now I'm wondering if it's like possibly like some fucking Louisiana-ism or something that I just don't understand. But is there more to it, or is it just a way of saying you should be ashamed of yourself? Or is it worse than that? Or, the other possibility that popped into my head was he's making like a reference to like wearing a burqa. I don't know. Put your head in a bag. Put a bag on your head like your friends in UNRWA, Hamas, Hezbollah does. Barry, who has consistently denied supporting any terrorist groups, countered the senator's accusations, stating, "Senator, oddly enough, I'm going to say thank you for that question, because it demonstrates the purpose of our hearing today." In one sentence, Barry highlighted the fact that U.S. senators are not immune to the very hate which the hearing was set upon to address. Exactly. When I was reading about this, just seeing the video, and then finding out, I found out after the fact, actually, that, this whole hearing was about, like, prejudice and hate. But of course, what they really mean by that is kids on college campuses making Jews feel scared, and the anti-Semitism of it all. That's what they really mean by hate and harassment or whatever. But this guy uses this, this fucking moron senator uses this time to just be a completely hateful, racist piece of shit. Let's see. Barry continues. Maya Barry continues. "Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization that I do not support," she explained. "But you asking the executive director of the Arab American Institute that question very much puts the focus on the issue of hate in our country." The incident drew swift condemnation from civil rights organizations, including the Council on American Islamic Relations. Maya Berry went before the committee to discuss hate crimes. Both Ms. Berry and the topic should have been treated with the respect and seriousness they deserve, said Council on American Islamic Relations Government Affairs Director Robert McCaw, who attended the hearing. Instead, Senator Kennedy and others chose to be an example of the bigotry that Arabs, Palestinians, and Muslims have faced in recent months and years. They also highlighted the alarming rise in anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian sentiment in the U.S. The organization reported a 69% increase in complaints related to discrimination and hate incidences in the first half of 2024, compared with the same period in 2023. Students protesting against Israel's genocide in Gaza were subjected to racism, said CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. The rights group pointed out that education discrimination incidents spiked in May as student encampments urging universities to take an anti-genocide stand dominated media headlines. The experience of students and employees during this cycle of anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian hate remained the standout trends compared with past cycles, added the advocacy group. Heading southward for a moment. This is kind of a continuation or an update on something I talked about last week about some of the constitutional changes Mexico is geared up to make very soon. I don't want to get into the whole thing, but basically one of the big changes is that the new ruling party in Mexico that has a super majority, they want to make the appointments of federal judges something that's voted upon democratically. Wow, what insanity, right? I'm not going to rehash this. I mean, I went through it all last week, but after that happened, I saw another article about it, and it just drove me crazy because it took a new angle on the whole thing, and the title is basically where you can see it. So, is Mexico at risk of turning back into a one-party state? Okay, so this asshole says that the AMLO's reform package, however, is likely to make the judiciary even more rotten than it already is. Despite what AMLO and his surrogates may say in public, it's difficult not to see the judicial reform measure as nothing short of a transparent revenge campaign against the one institution in Mexico's system of government, the courts, that has put a check on his policies. It's also one of the institutions in Mexico's system of government that is deeply corrupt, and like you don't need, like you don't have to seek out evidence of that corruption. It's like there for everyone to see in broad daylight. This asshole goes on to write, AMLO may dress it up as a nationwide exercise in democracy now that thousands of judges at the federal, state, and local level will soon be elected rather than appointed to their positions. Can you just hear the seething behind this? People being elected rather than appointed? We're gonna let the unwashed masses do democracy? I mean, we love democracy, right? Yeah. Just not here. Not in Mexico. Not in the courts. But the reality is far more convoluted and potentially dangerous for the state of Mexico's still relatively young democracy. God, the condescension in this makes me want to vomit in this person's face. I mean, you get the idea. You get where that's going, right? Okay. Heading further south still to Ecuador, where the United States is doing a coup, a good old-fashioned Central South American style coup. As Ben Norton tweeted, the U.S. is colonizing Ecuador. Ecuador's right-wing president Daniel Noboa is a U.S. citizen and the son of Ecuador's richest billionaire oligarch. He's now changing the constitution, which bans foreign military bases. Noboa is inviting the U.S. military to take over Ecuador. And in Brazil, maybe people just end on Brazil. Let's end on Brazil, I think. Yeah. In Brazil, why all this hate? Mayoral debate in Brazil turns ugly as candidate attacks rival with chair live on TV. A mayoral debate in the Brazilian city of Sao Paulo turned ugly when one of its candidates attacked a rival with a chair. Video from the debate, broadcast live on Sunday by TV Cultura, shows a tense exchange between José Luis de Tena and Pablo Marçal, before De Tena swings the chair at his counterpart. De Tena later told TV Cultura that he had attacked Marçal, who had required hospital treatment for his injuries, because he had brought up old sexual harassment allegations against De Tena that were dismissed several years ago. He came with a case that was archived, that was not even investigated by the police because there was no evidence, something from 11 years ago that caused a very serious situation within my family, De Tena said. De Tena was expelled from the debate, but insisted in a statement Monday that while he had made a mistake, he did not regret his actions. Marçal was treated at Sino-Libanese Hospital before being released. His team said he was treated for a possible fracture in the chest region and had difficulty breathing. The hospital said he had suffered trauma to his chest and wrist, but without any major complications. Marçal compared the chair attack to the July assassination attempt against former U.S. President Donald Trump and the stabbing of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro during the 2018 election, posting an image of all three attacks on Instagram with the caption, "Why all this hate?" TV Cultura said it regretted the incident and had pressed ahead with the discussion in accordance with the rules after the other candidates agreed. Marçal's team vowed to take legal action. Pablo Marçal was cowardly attacked by José Luis de Tena, who hit him in the ribs with an iron chair, Marçal's team said, adding that it was unfortunate the debate had continued without him. That's a pretty hilariously craven little attempt to really puff yourself up. You think you're on the same level as Bolsonaro and Trump on this shit? Bolsonaro got stabbed, Trump got shot in the ear. You got the wind knocked out of you with a chair. I don't know. One of these things is not like the other. And I said I would end with Brazil, and I am flying over Venezuela and France, but I cannot just glide over Switzerland, where a Swiss politician apologizes for firing gun at a Mary and Jesus poster. A city councilor in Switzerland has apologized and reportedly sought police protection against threats after she fired a sport pistol at an auction poster of a 14th century Madonna and child painting and posted images of their bullet-ridden faces on social media. Green Liberal Party official Sanija Ameti, 32, put the images on Instagram over the weekend before quickly pulling them down. She later said she had been practicing shots from about 33 feet away and found the poster big enough, quote, for a suitable target. 33 feet is very specific, and it just dawned on me now, this being maybe the third time I've looked at this today. Is she having some fun? 33? Kind of famously the age of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ when he was crucified. I don't know. It's kind of the angle I have with this whole thing, is I think this lady is fucking with people a little bit, and I like her for it. Yeah, Sanja Mehdi, you go girl, you slay queen, etc. Continuing a little bit more though. So yeah, she claims to have apologized. I apologize to the people who were hurt by my post. I deleted it immediately when I realized it's religious content. I didn't think about it, Ameti wrote on X. I'm incredibly sorry. Now either she's fucking around, she's messing with people a little bit, because how do you not notice the religious content? Or she is truly just that, like, can't be bothered with religiosity or whatever. It doesn't even register to her, as she's putting up like a poster-sized piece of artwork basically and firing bullets at it. The Green Liberal Party in Zurich said she had resigned from its leadership. Its co-president said he heard that Ameti was, quote, in a safe place and she's okay. Ameti did not respond to an attempt by the Associated Press to reach her through social media. Cath.ch, a site of the media center for the Roman Catholic Church in Switzerland, said Swiss bishops condemned the shooting, saying that, quote, this hurts the religious sensibilities of many Catholics. The site said Ameti had reached out by email to say she and her family had, quote, placed themselves under police protection due to threats. Farner Group, a consulting firm where Ameti worked, said in an email that it had decided Monday to terminate the employment relationship. The images continued to circulate in Swiss media and online Tuesday. Daily 20 Minutes published a photo of Ameti standing in what looks like a stone-paneled crypt and pointing a pistol. Another frame showed bullet holes in the haloed heads and faces of Mary and Jesus. The poster, an advertisement from auction house Kohler, showed details of the work Madonna with Child and the Archangel Michael by 14th century Italian painter Tommaso del Mazza that is set up to go for sale on September 20th. Is this all a rogue marketing campaign for this auction? Maybe that's what makes sense out of this. Otherwise, I don't know why this has gotten so much coverage. Associates distanced themselves from the actions by Ameti, in particular ahead of September 22nd referendums on national and local issues. Operation Libero, an advocacy group that Ameti co-founded that promotes free democracy, called her actions, quote, wrong and inappropriate, and said it supports religious freedom and opposes incitement. How the fuck do you support religious freedom but not support freedom from religion? I mean, it all seems like it's of a piece, but I don't know. This is surprising to me for several reasons, but like mainly I assumed Switzerland was like a very extremely actually secular place, but apparently not. Apparently people are issuing death threats and shit because this lady had a little firearms fun with an advertisement with a painting of Jesus's face on it. Anyway, Sanija Mehdi, give me a call and we'll sign off from here. So check out the show description, the episode description. Join the Discord server. Come say hi, jump on in. We have a website, we're on Twitter, YouTube, a bunch of stuff. It's all there. And finally, I'd like to close out today's episode with a little blast from my past. I don't know what made me think of this, but for some reason I just decided I want to look up Jack Handy's deep thoughts, because those are always fun, but I don't know why I thought of it. It's probably the good Lord looking out for me, yeah. But here we go. The first. Is there anything more beautiful than a beautiful, beautiful flamingo flying across in front of a beautiful sunset? And he's carrying a very beautiful rose in his beak. And also, he's carrying a very beautiful painting with his feet. And also, you're drunk. And truly, finally, to me, truth is not some vague, foggy notion. Truth is real. And at the same time, unreal. Fiction and fact and everything in between, plus some things I can't remember, all rolled into one big thing. This is truth to me. Alright, closing out transmission 003. See y'all again next week. It's good to be the pillow underneath your dreams. Somewhere in the middle of these things and how they seem. Still I wonder what you're thinking when you're smiling in your sleep, with your eyes in rapid fire, all the images you keep. From me. Still we loving and we fighting and we drinking in our sleep, like a corpse upon my body, all covered up by sheets. So remember when you're sleeping and you're dreaming somewhere else, I'll be staring out the window, motel room by myself. Well, I don't know why we try, but I'll love you when you die. Well, I don't know why I'll even try, 'cause I'll love you
The first voice recording was made in 1860. It was a 10-second fragment of the French folk song Au clair de la lune recorded by inventor Edward Leon Scott de Martinville. But who will make the final voice recording and when? What will it be? Who will hear it?